I want to hear cannons. Downfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Those up with the head. Intercepted. 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25. 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And then the cannons come. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Everybody take a deep breath. It is time to exhale. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 6-6, a 26-23 overtime victory over the Carolina Panthers. The third time this season the Bucs have faced overtime, and not only do they win the coin toss, they win the game. A hard-fought division battle with the Carolina Panthers, and towards the end of it, Evan, this really felt like a game that neither team wanted to win, but an ugly win, and a win inside of an ugly division is still a win. A win's a win's a win. And today we are going to break that down and then some. Welcome back to the Cannon Fire Podcast. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew. Joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Evan Wanish. We are reacting to this game, and it certainly was a game in the NFL this weekend. The Buccaneers do come out on top, though. They needed a win after a performance like that.
It was a football game. Yeah, look, the peaks and valleys of this game. I mean, and I'm sure there's people out there that are similar to all of us. Your thoughts going through the game. It goes from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, and yeah, really just a complete roller coaster. One thing I will say, and I have to address this because I Bleav this is I think it's the first time it's ever happened. I predicted the exact right score of this football game. If you go back and the Bucs 26-23 over the Panthers. Yeah, thanks. I think it's the first time I've been close a couple times. Rhett's been close a couple times. Rhett, might have done it, but I know me personally, I've never predicted an exact score of a game. So people are going to say, "Oh, were you surprised it's so close?" And I'm going to say no, but I mean, it was surprising the way it all went down, right? Obviously, I wasn't predicting, like I said, that range of emotions throughout the entire game. So, yeah, we have a lot to talk about today. A lot of good, but a lot of bad as well. Because quite frankly, there were times that they did not deserve to win this football game. And just like you said earlier, it seemed like neither team really wanted to win this game. And somebody it could have ended in a tie, which would have been a CFP first, the first time ever in CFP history that we would have been covering a tie. But luckily for the Buccaneers, they're able to win. The Falcons lost earlier today to the Los Angeles Chargers, so now the Falcons and the Buccaneers have the same exact record at 6-6. Obviously, the Falcons still owning that tiebreaker, so the Bucs still have some more work to do. But their dreams could have very well been dashed if things went a little differently today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get a win. You get a win on an important weekend because the Saints lost to the Rams this afternoon, and the Falcons lost this afternoon as well. So when you're trying to make up ground in an NFC South, this division race really is going to come down to the wire. You need these other teams to continue losing, and this weekend you got blessed with just that. The Buccaneers, the only victorious team in the NFC South this weekend. But yeah, where do you want to start with this game? Where should we unpack things? Because I think the overwhelming feeling is that neither team could really find a rhythm. I don't know if the Bucs just weren't ready to play out of the gate. Congratulations or thank you to Joel Elrican. He renews his membership for the Cannon Fire crew. He is a member for 3 months this month. He says, "Geez, my heart is glad that this is over. Go Bucs. Bucky is a beast." Yeah, we'll talk about Bucky Irving here shortly, but this really was a game that took years off of my life. I was telling you before we started the show, it reminded me of that game in 2018. It was Baker Mayfield's rookie season. He was with the Cleveland Browns, and he was playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It took the leg of Chandler Catanzaro in overtime to win that game for Tampa Bay, but there were so many times where it just felt like the game did not end. As we have said a couple of times up until this point, quite a few mistakes for both of these teams, having to overcome themselves on top of the other team. It felt like a couple of times neither team wanted to put this game away.
Yeah, and it felt like a couple of times where, the Bucs season was on the brink, right? I mean, obviously, look, things can happen, and if they lost this game, would the season have been, officially over? No, but if you lose this game, it's an uphill battle, right? It's a much more uphill battle, and there were times where it was. It was dicey, right? It was hanging in the balance there for like multiple times, not just once or twice. Like it was multiple times throughout this game where you were like, oh man, like it's not looking too good. Like the Buccaneers trailed twice, I Bleav, in the fourth quarter. And then obviously in overtime they missed the field goal. Carolina gets an opportunity to win the game, and it looks like they're going to, right? And they don't even get to attempt the field goal. So yeah, I think we get started on the offensive side of the ball. I think I think that has a lot more storylines than the defense. Obviously, Baker Mayfield in this one, not a good day. All right. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Not a good Baker day. Two interceptions, especially the first one, two very avoidable interceptions. I mean, that's a 6-point swing there from Baker Mayfield at the end of the half. Not only do you take potentially 3 points away from the Bucs, you get Carolina to add 3 points. And the Bucs were lucky, that the Adam Thielen catch was ruled an incomplete pass. I personally. Since they called it an incomplete pass, I actually thought they were going to keep the call that. Yeah. Because you need clear evidence, and I was like, with officials, you never know nowadays. So
funny enough with Adam Thielen too. I mean, that catch in the end zone that they ruled incomplete was one of the most impressive of his career. He had an even better one in overtime.
He's the best catch of his career. Yeah,
I thought that was going to be the play to put them away. We'll talk about that dramatic finish in a little bit, but. Yeah. Talking a little bit more about the offense, Baker Mayfield and the rest of the offense today, it was just, they were sputtering, but a lot of the times it was just self-inflicted mistakes.
Yes.
And it didn't feel like there was a lot of things causing them. Baker, a couple of his breakdowns today, it's kind of the same thing he does where, I don't know if he just puts too much pressure on himself, if he tries to do too much, but it felt like he wasn't composed for a lot of this game. And it was one of the rougher days in the office he has had in recent weeks. He was 21 for 33, 235, had a touchdown and 2 interceptions, left the game after getting that ankle stepped on from Jadeveon Clowney. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, when he was on the ground grabbing his ankle, Baker's a tough guy. So seeing him get theatrical, if you will, down there on the ground, I was ready to chalk up that this game and potentially the season was over if Baker never came back in the game. But I mean, he did.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's a couple people in the chat, Peter in the chat says why people keep saying that the Bucs got lucky. The Bucs did get a little lucky. The Falcons got lucky on Thursday Night Football a couple weeks back against the Buccaneers. That happens. You need it.
If Eddie Pinheiro plays like a competent NFL kicker today, this game probably wouldn't have gone to overtime.
Yeah, it doesn't even reach that point. So you need a little bit of that, right? You definitely do. You need a little bit of luck in the NFL. So, I mean, look, it's not a good Baker day. It's just it felt like at times trying to force things, and of course he gets rolled up there, which looked scary, right? Obviously, and then him, like you said, him being down, it takes a lot to keep him out of the game. And when okay, like it was fourth down, whatever, he comes out of the game, they're punting anyway, but then you see Kyle Trask, with the helmet on, then you're like, oh, well, he's still getting checked out. This must be not just like, oh, he's sore. It's serious stuff here. So, yeah, and then you see Trask actually come into the game, but then Mayfield doesn't redeem himself though, because he has one play and he throws an interception, and at that point that could have been the game, right? That could have been the game. And I will say one thing, and we have criticized the defense plenty this entire season, and we'll probably continue to do so because there's still going to be plays and times where you want to rip your hair out, but that they returned it to the 20 And then the Panthers only got a field goal out of that drive, kept it 16-10 instead of being 20-10. So that's massive right there, keeping it a one-score game instead of a two-score game. So kudos to the defense in that situation there, being put in a tough spot. Yeah, I mean, Mayfield obviously has to be better. There was a couple drops in the first half, one by Mike Evans. There was one by Cade Otton, two by Cade Otton.
Yeah.
There was one by Sterling Shepard. So, yeah, I mean, obviously they need to be a little bit, cleaner, right, like with those. But at the end of the day, yeah, Baker needs to be better, and we'll see how that ankle feels tomorrow. I'm sure it's not going to be feeling great. With the keep an eye on the injury. I mean, I'm sure he's going to play. It's just how limited will he be? And luckily for the Buccaneers, they were able to find the running game, especially in the second half.
Yeah, and Baker Mayfield came back into the game through the interception. I got to say, probably the most cinematic interception I've seen all season. I don't know what it was, but just the image of him coming off of the sideline. A lot of the fans getting into it, right? Like a lot of the Bucs fans were there. They were vocal. We heard a Bucky chant at one point. They're cheering on Baker. We're all pumped up to see our guy get back in the game. One play, interception. Just completely deflated the energy that we had felt at that point. But yeah, make some big throws down the stretch. In that overtime series, he's able to find Mike Evans throughout the rest of the game. And Rachaad White.
And also to tie the game as well. I mean, 30 seconds left. You have 3 timeouts, which
absolutely
really comes in handy. But yeah, I mean, to tie that game as well, made some big throws. So when it counted, at the end of the game there and in overtime, he was pretty good. But again, if Eddie Pinheiro make some of the kicks, it doesn't go to overtime. If Baker Mayfield plays a little bit better, before the end of the fourth quarter there, it might not go into overtime either. So, the Bucs need, I mean, if the Bucs are going to make the playoffs, they need Baker Mayfield to be better than he was on Sunday. But regardless, he still was able, like you said, to make some throws down the stretch and get the job done there.
Yeah, and let's not forget that there was an offensive series where the Bucs made it all the way down into the red zone. Bucky Irving had a huge drive to set them up in the red zone, and they could not get a touchdown. They had to settle for 3 there, and that was the difference that allowed Carolina to go ahead and get the go-ahead score to put the Bucs in a situation to send this thing to overtime. If they could have scored a touchdown at that time, it would have been a 2-possession lead for Tampa Bay, probably would have iced the game at that point.
So it would have been an 8-point game had the Bucs just kicked the extra point. The thought process I had, though, is if you scored the touchdown, and I'm not going to spend any time on this because it didn't happen. It's all hypothetical. But if you score the touchdown, you go up 23-16. Do you go for 2 to try and make it a 2-score game, or do you just kick the extra point and make Carolina need a touchdown and a 2-point conversion? So, Carolina got the touchdown, at the end there, but instead of taking the lead, they would have needed a 2-point conversion to tie you. That's what I'm not sure, right? Would I have gone for 2 to make it a 9-point game instead of an 8-point game? So, but regardless, that's not what happened. It got a little predictable there, I think, at the end. And but they had, I mean, they had their chances, right? And both teams had chances to put each other away. I mean, both teams had plenty of chances. Carolina had a chance to put Tampa Bay away, like I said, right after that second Baker Mayfield interception. Only scoring a field goal there, not a touchdown. That's a moment there. Obviously, in overtime, Carolina up 3. All you need is one defensive play late in the fourth quarter. Both teams had multiple chances to close the door essentially, and couldn't do it. And like you said, I'm going to keep going back. It was like nobody wanted to win it. And fortunately for the Buccaneers, fortunately for Todd Bowles especially, they were able to hang on and able to get the victory.
Inconsistent on the offensive side of the ball. It was hard to find a rhythm, hard to get out of their way at times. 7 penalties for 54 yards against the Bucs today. 7 penalties for 62 yards against the Panthers today. So a lot of yellow laundry all over the field, and
a lot of pre-snap, which is frustrating. That's a frustrating part too. It wasn't like you're just committing fouls. It's a lot of unnecessary stuff.
Well, don't forget, Vi Jones sent a message early on in this game. First defensive series for the Bucs. He takes out the lead official. So I think they had to call an audible for the officiating crew for the rest of this game. And we got what we got. But while we are talking about the Buccaneers offense, it's hard to talk about this day without talking about the running backs, man, but specifically Bucky Irving. I know Rachaad White had the big-time 38-yard scamper at the end of the game to kind of put it away in overtime and set up the Chase McLaughlin field goal there. But Bucky Irving, your leading rusher, and gets that long-awaited 100-yard game on the ground. I think I called it this week, said this week should be the week that he gets it. 25 carries, 150.
He got it.
Yeah, he got it and then some. 25 carries, 152 yards, 1 touchdown, and then he got involved in the pass game as well. 3 catches, 33 yards, averaging 6.1 yards a tote. I mean, Bucky Irving, running back one, brother. We've been screaming. I've been screaming it from the rooftops since the week of the Saints game. But it feels like a long time coming with the running back usage at the point that it was this week. Let's not discount Rachaad White. He also had a nice week. 11 carries, 76 yards, averaging 6.9 yards a tote. And
has the big run at there at the end to set it up.
They didn't get him as involved in the pass game, which didn't bode well for our parlay this week, which I am a little upset about. But regardless, he was getting involved in this run game. And I think the run game was the most consistent thing about the offense today. It pretty much saved the game for Tampa Bay. Won them the game at overtime.
Yeah. If you had to have, if you had to have this game on the back of Baker Mayfield, a hobbled Baker Mayfield at that point, I don't know how that would have gone, right? So, and again, it is like, you say, Bucky Irving, the running back one campaign. Well, you got your wish because he is. I mean, he is this team's running back one. You just look at the carries. I mean, that's all you have to do. Not even the snap counts. The snap counts obviously aren't available right now. But I mean, 25 carries to 11. I mean, it's pretty clear who the Bucs want out there more. So yeah, I am not surprised by it. He's been really good. I mean, Bucky Irving has. Like I said, I think he's probably the most exciting, Bucs rookie running back since 2012, and Doug Martin. Obviously, Ronald Jones' rookie season was pretty disappointing. Keyshawn Vaughn's rookie season was pretty disappointing. So Rachaad White's rookie season was fine. So the Bucs have had a lot of running backs have rookie seasons. A lot of day 2, running backs have rookie seasons, but they haven't really. And Bucky Irving's a day 3 pick, and he's really having one heck of a rookie season. So he got a little bit banged up with the hip there. And it sucks because that was an unnecessary shot to take right at the end of the half, returning it, sort of just trying to run clock out, and he gets hit. Hopefully, he'll be all right. But yeah, I mean, look, 25 for 152 and a touchdown. Then getting involved in the passing game as well. 3 catches for 33 yards. I mean, that's just. That's massive, and to be able to have that at your disposal, especially when your quarterback is not only injured but he's also struggling a little bit, right? So even when he was healthy in this game, he wasn't playing his best ball. It makes everything so much easier for an offense.
Going to be interesting to see where the numbers line up, but Bucky Irving is not just leading NFL rookie running backs in yards per carry. He is among top 3. Like, he is literally up there with Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, both of those guys having MVP caliber seasons from the running back position. So you talk about an exciting rookie season for a running back. 152 yards on the ground today for Bucky Irving is the most for any running back in their rookie season in Tampa Bay since Ronald Jones, or I'm sorry, any running back in general, not even their rookie season, excuse me. The most for any Bucs running back since Ronald Jones had 198 yards against the Panthers in 2020, and we all remember that 99-yard touchdown.
Yeah, helps when you have that. But I mean, I will say, and also so they put the graphic up on the broadcast, and it was the yards per attempt or whatever. And Bucky Irving was 4th on the list, and ahead of him was Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. So. What a list, right? Yeah. I mean, a heck of a list. I mean, Bucky Irving, I mean, if obviously, look, Offensive Rookie of the Year is a quarterback award. It's always going to be a quarterback award unless, there's maybe a special wide receiver or something like, Jaden Daniels will probably be taking that home. But I mean, Bucky Irving should be in that conversation. He should be in the top 5, top 3 of that conversation because what he's been doing has been really, really, really good for the Buccaneers. So and it's helped to win ball games. I mean, they do not win this game today without Bucky Irving. They simply don't. And when they need him to get going, he did exactly that. So it was really good. And like you said, Rachaad White also getting involved a little bit. So it has the big run there late to set up the game winner. So Rachaad White playing a role. Didn't really see any of Sean Tucker today, but look, when well, when Bucky Irving's doing that, or even if it was Rashad White, if it was flipped, when you're doing that, I don't mind that. You got to ride the hot hand at times, and those guys, especially Irving, were the hot hand. So 2 weeks in a row now that Bucky Irving has really gotten the job done, and like I said, it's pretty clear to me now that going forward, I'd be pretty surprised if he wasn't the Bucs' main running back. Even though they will still use Rashad White, I still would expect to see much more Bucky Irving down the stretch.
Two more notes on the offense here before we look at the other side of the ball. Mike Evans, man, he is back for another week, and he's just getting better at this point. 8 receptions, 118 yards, and a touchdown to lead the team. And let's talk about that touchdown, brother. I'm pretty sure that you and I have both watched every single Mike Evans touchdown of his career, and he's got a few catches like the one he had today, but something about that catch today made me jump up out of my seat. He's aging like a fine wine. Mike Evans truly is a one-of-a-kind NFL wide receiver. I mean, I could go on forever about how much I love Mike Evans, but a play like that today was exactly the reason why we love him so much.
Yeah, great catch. It's a shame that Thielen outdid him, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it was a great grab. Keep both feet in as well, obviously. In that scenario, so yeah, it adds to the highlight reel, and yeah, he came up big, especially late in the game as well. Had a couple of catches, I Bleav, on the final drive to tie the game, and then had a couple of catches in overtime. So that definitely helped. And betting the Bucs, obviously, we had a Mike Evans anytime touchdown, so that helped to get that out of the way early too, right? First score of the game, get that right out of the way. So yeah, that definitely helped. And yeah, it's like I said, his presence was sorely missed on this offense. Again, something of a concern for me that not many other receivers are doing too much. Like, I don't know how much sustainable that is, especially against good teams that can take away multiple things that Evans or Bucky Irving or Kate Otten can do. But I mean, I do think it's nice to have Mike Evans back in the fold, and again, it makes everything so much easier. So good to see him have a big day, and I'm sure it felt good for him, to get in the end zone. So it was pretty cool. And again, like I said, we could talk about it another time, but just Jalen McMillan, made a play, I Bleav, in overtime. But he was pretty quiet. Sterling Shepard had a couple of plays, but again, had a drop. So that's the one thing that I do question about this team still, that like isn't probably going to get much better. Like the wide receiver depth still concerns me, but overall, Mike Evans was exactly what the Buccaneers needed today.
If I'm not mistaken, he should be somewhere around 520 receiving yards, 521 receiving yards for the year after today's performance. He should need somewhere around 480-ish yards with 5 games left. 118-yard performance for the Buccaneers offensive GOAT today. Evan, the Mike Watch weather radar for receiving yards. Does he get 1K this year?
I mean, I've stuck with yes. And I mean, today helped. Anytime you can go over the average, right? So everybody will say, oh, it needs the average 96 yards a game. Anytime you go over that, if you hit it, great. But if you go over that average, that's a bonus, right? Because then you're in a really good spot. Facing a Raiders team that I think he could take advantage of. So maybe we get even more yards out of Mike Evans. Who knows? But yeah, sure. Like I said, he's going to be facing the same Carolina team again in a couple weeks. He had success today. I think he can have success again against them. And New Orleans, they're a tough team, but now Marshawn Lattimore isn't there, and Marshawn Lattimore in the past has given Mike Evans fits, no matter how good or bad those teams are for the Saints or for the Buccaneers. So that could potentially be a little bit easier. He, like I said, he still has the favorable matchup, so I'll still say yeah. I think it'll be by a hair. I don't think it's going to be like insane or anything. You're gonna be like, oh my god, he ended with 1,200 yards. How did he do that? I'm not expecting that, but I do think there's a pretty good chance of it.
One more note on the offensive side of the ball here, this time in the trenches. Going to be interesting to see what the grades are for the offensive linemen this week, but I thought Graham Barton really had a rough go of it today. Part of that sloppy start today, a couple of botched snaps, And, blocking wise, I think he was fine, but there were just a couple of miscues today and a lot of costly penalties and a lot of fingers going to be pointed at him this week when you look at miscues, flags, and just, shooting yourself in the foot with mistakes. He was guilty of a lot of that in the first half.
Yeah, early on, you could tell. I think it was the first drive, right? The snap is a little low. Mayfield has to pick it up and ends up getting sacked. And then there's a couple high snaps, couple snaps to the side. Bleav he had 2 penalties or one for sure, legal motion or something, or ineligible man downfield. Graham Barton might have had one of his more tougher days of the office for his rookie season. It might have been one of the worst games of his career. Obviously, it's a very small sample size, but a day I think you're going to want to learn from, but forget at the same time. Because that's the things that you can't really excuse, right? The bad snaps, that's even if the quarterback catches it, it's thrown off a rhythm, right? It's throwing everything off. If he has to reach up or he has to go back to the side or whatever it may be, is to go to the ground to pick it up or I think Barton he'll clean that up, but obviously not a great day from 62.
We got a $1.99 super chat from Chris Higgins. He says, "I love Bucky Irving. # Wendy's fun." Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
We are a little under halfway to a 5 for 5 meal deal.
Yeah, I know.
We're
getting there.
Junior bacon cheeseburger.
Maybe we could go eat Wendy's with Bucky Irving.
Yeah,
that'd be
cool. While we are talking about Bucky Irving, really quickly, just a footnote here on the offense. I don't know why Bucky's, the gas station, has not reached out to this guy sooner. They are really missing the boat. You see a lot of these gas stations, like especially during football season, they are decorated head to toe in Bud Light, Pepsi, NFL sponsorships. I mean, some of these places even have, big Sunday ticket banner promotions in the gas station. So, I think they're missing the boat not putting a Bucky's t-shirt on Bucky Irving. Maybe this time next year it'll be a different conversation. But, just an incredibly exciting player to watch. Let's talk about the other side of the ball here, though. Really, I think the heroes of the day, we're going to talk about Rachaad White. We're going to talk about Bucky Irving's big-time day on offense. And I think people are going to be enamored with the turnaround this offense kind of had there in the fourth quarter to buckle down when it mattered. But Anthony Nelson, forced fumble, is the game winner. You know what I mean? At that point in overtime, all the Panthers had to do was kick a field goal. But, of course, they couldn't trust their kicker. So they had to run just one more play. And Chuba Hubbard, who really had done a good job of extending plays, extending his arm out, picking up the first down, tries to do it one more time. Nelson takes advantage, punches the ball out. Playmakers make plays. And besides that Rachaad White run to set up the Chase McLaughlin game-winning field goal, Anthony Nelson probably with the biggest play of the game and one of the biggest plays of the season up until this point. When you consider what a loss today would have meant.
Yeah, the stakes, right? I think if this Bucs team wins the NFC South, goes on a playoff run, even if it doesn't even result in a Super Bowl, whatever it may be, you're gonna be looking back at that particular play maybe as like, wow, that's a biggie, that's a big one there. So that's definitely one where I'd have to go back and really think, but might be the biggest play of his career. Honestly, it's in terms of just pure impact.
Yeah,
it might be one of the biggest plays in his entire career. So, obviously he's been a solid role player. The issue is they have him as a starter, basically, which that's not necessarily all his fault. But he made a big play when it mattered. Chuba Hubbard gives the Bucs fits every time.
Tommy Tremble.
Yeah, that guy.
Career high in receiving yards today for Tommy Tremble.
It's every time. It's every time. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just
Doesn't matter what team he's on. Doesn't matter.
It's annoying. And Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen had a great day, and Russell Wilson had a great day. So welcome back to 2016. I don't even know if Adam Thielen was in the league in 2016, but so. Yeah, with the Nelson thing, you're right. That's the game pretty much, right? Carolina might have run one had Chuba Hubbard not fumbled. Carolina might have ran one more play, maybe, and then they're kicking the field goal for the win. Because the Bucs already had the ball, so all Carolina needed was to kick the field goal. All they needed was basically to not have what happened happen. I mean, that's pretty much all they needed,
Yep.
right? So, and you knew they probably weren't going to throw the ball. They weren't going to put the ball in harm's way that way. And yeah, fortunately for the Bucs, Nelson makes that play. Diaby is able to recover it, and you could just sort of feel that this game was. I felt at that point I felt kind of safe from a loss. I was like, all right, it's either going to be a tie or the Bucs are going to win. Like it sort of felt safe from a loss. And obviously, a tie wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world, but it wouldn't have been the best. It would have been a tie. So that would have really complicated all the scenarios and stuff. But so I'm happy that the Bucs got the win and not the tie. But yeah, a massive play when the Bucs needed it most. Because if that doesn't happen, the Bucs are probably losing this football game, and we're having a much different conversation right now.
Yeah, we really are. And when you look at the rest of this defensive performance on the day, there's a couple of things that go into it. One of them being Bryce Young playing with confidence. I thought that there were plenty of times today where he just made the right read, made a great throw, found the hole in the defense. And, that's on Dave Canales kind of having his guy ready to play. We talked about that with our guest this week. We also talked a lot about how this might be looking like a trap game for the Bucs. It could be a frustrating afternoon. And Evan, I don't know if you get caught up in reading the comments every now and again, but people ripped us to shreds for saying that the Bucs were not going to win by 20 points this week. Bryce Young played well. I do think this defense, though, in the grand scheme of things, could still be unreliable.
Yes.
Is a choice word. They were inconsistent. Couple of questionable play calls from Todd Bowles, having his guys in questionable situations, continuing to drop these outside linebackers and interior linemen back into coverage. That I don't quite understand. The middle of the field continuing to be just porous for some of these guys. Like I think, Bryce Young, when he was really throwing the ball well in a few of those series there, it was down the middle of the field. He was finding his guys quickly. There were even a couple of big-time improv plays where the pass rush just could not contain him. The one that I think of in particular is he's rolling out to the right, extends the play, and it's a 31-yard bomb over the top of the offense to Tommy Tremble. Who else, right? Pass rush couldn't get there. The blitz couldn't get there. He's able to make a heads-up play. He did that a good amount of times today. And I think he showed a lot of Panthers fans that have been waiting for that kind of stuff exactly what they wanted. He was throwing away passes that just simply weren't there. He showed a little bit of maturity compared to the last time the Bucs have seen him, without a doubt.
If the Panthers would have been able to pick up one more Todd Bowles blitz, I don't know why they kept doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I understand you need to generate pressure. Okay, you can't really do that consistently with four guys, especially, it doesn't help that Joe Schweinsteiger's out. I know people have their opinions on him regardless. It's still somebody who's out of the game. But it wasn't working. They consistently picked it up, and their running backs, Chuba Hubbard and Jonathan Brooks, both did a really good job against the Bucs linebackers of just mauling them, right? I mean, the Bucs linebackers come through and they'd meet a Panther running back, and that'd be the end of that. And it was not working. And yeah, this defense. I mean, look, I think so. The first thought that came to my mind when the Panthers scored that touchdown to go ahead, with with 30 seconds left, was like, all right. I was like, that feels like the obviously the Bucs had a chance to tie it, but I was like, that feels like the nail in the coffin for Todd Bowles. Like, and I'm not saying they were going to fire him. Okay, like will not fire him mid-season. They can lose to the Raiders next week. They're not going to fire him. It doesn't matter. Okay, they're not going to fire him mid-season. But I was like, yeah, that feels like when it comes down, Todd Bowles is fired. You're going to look back at this game being like, yeah, that was the dagger, because it was sort of similar to last year's Houston game. Okay, of like. Like that's the type of game and the type of way your defense plays that gets you fired. And luckily for Todd Bowles, they were able to win the game. But, I mean, the Bucs, they were able to win the game. But, I mean, the Bucs, they were able to win the game. And luckily for Todd Bowles, they were able to win the game. But, I mean, the Bucs, they were able to win the game. But, you still have a lot of questions about this defense. And unfortunately for Todd Bowles, that's supposed to be the side of the football that is supposed to be the strong suit of this team because your head coach is the defensive guy. So when you're winning basically because of your offense and just pure luck, it's not a great look for your defense who had a chance to close out. And yes, the defense made a big play in overtime. I get it. But at the same time, yeah, there was a chance. All you need to do is make one play in regulation, and this game doesn't even go to overtime. And for again, the Buccaneers could not do that. And we've had multiple games this season where the Buccaneers, both Atlanta games, a few times, right, late in the game, needed a stop, couldn't get it. San Francisco needed a stop, couldn't get it. Kansas City needed a stop, couldn't get it. We've seen it many times, and it was almost a chance, an opportunity of, yep, it's coming back to bite them again. And luckily it didn't, but you're right. This defense is, I think, still gonna give people a lot of anxiety throughout this entire season.
We talked about tackling this week on the game preview, and that was another issue for the defense today. A couple of these plays are being made by guys who have already made contact with someone on the defensive side of the ball, and they kept going. That was an issue. They only missed, I think, 5 or 6 tackles last week, maybe even less than that on defense last week against the Giants, and that's part of the reason they look so dominant. They were not a cohesive unit today. They did not play a consistent 4 quarters. Neither did the offense. I mean, really, we've said it time and time again. Like this is a win. A win is a win is a win. And it's a division win, so you can kind of hang your hat on that even more as to why this game felt the way that it did. But it didn't feel like a game at points the Bucs deserved to win. And that's because of the inconsistencies on both sides of the football. But when it comes to the defense, Evan, looking a little bit more at their performance today, Kancey gets a sack. But other than that, I didn't see a ton of consistent pressure on Bryce Young. He, again, as we said earlier, had time to play a little bit more confident in the pocket today.
Yeah, Kancey, Kancey's been really, really good. Tied for the team lead in sacks with Vita Vea. So, I mean, they're 2 interior guys there. Another thing, actually, and I pulled this up during the game, is I wanted to show my dad proof, right? I was like, there's proof that during our season predictions, my bold prediction was that Kancey would lead the team in sacks. So we are on our way to that potentially happening. Yeah, I thought Kancey was good, and Kancey got a couple of pressures early in the game too. But yeah, you're right. For the most part, their blitzes didn't work, their 4-man rush didn't work, and Bryce Young was able to have a lot of time. When he didn't have time, he was able to avoid tacklers and scramble that Tommy Tremble one, right? That was a couple times, a couple defenders missed, and he's on the run throwing the ball. And yeah, so the defense needs to clean a lot of stuff up. At this point in the season, I just don't know if it's gonna happen, right? Like I just think you're gonna have to live with it, right? And just hope that they can get. And I understand it's not a way to live basically, but you're just gonna have to hope they can get some turnovers, and more so the timing of these big plays, right? Rather than the consistency of the big plays. When does the big sack happen? When does the big turnover happen? That's what I think you're gonna have to hope for, because this defense just it's not. I mean, there's in the chat right now. Yeah, this defense is what it is. Like that's exactly right. I mean, it is what it is with this defense. It's not going to get fixed in 2024. It's just not. So we'll see. I mean, it's yeah, it is what it is. And the good thing for them, though, again, they are going to. It's not like they're playing offenses that are just insanely talented over this next stretch of 5 games here. So, but again. Yeah, I mean they almost blew this entire game, right? And almost blew the Bucs season for. I mean, really, you could pin the defense, for a lot of the losses that the Bucs have, and this would have been another one.
Couple of injuries on the defensive side of the ball here, and these will be storylines headed into this week. The safety room, obviously, Mike Edwards leaves the game with an injury. He does not return. We will see what his status is. KJ Britt, the other player who left today due to an injury. But Evan, we're talking about the defense, and we're talking about tackling being an issue today. I've put off this conversation for a couple of weeks because I was waiting for things to turn around. And today, unfortunately, we got some more bad tape on one of my favorite defensive players. That is Antoine Winfield Jr. The people want to know, Coach Wanish, what is going on with the highest paid safety in NFL history? I mean, he gets this giant contract, and injuries are going to play a part, communication, and maybe some lineup changes week in and week out. Some other guys around him also not executing are going to play a part. But Antoine Winfield Jr. playing his day, missed an open field tackle on Bryce Young today on that big time rushing touchdown for Bryce Young. He has not looked like himself this season, and I think a lot of people are starting to get concerned here.
Well, the one thing I don't like when people say, "Oh, he got his money, now he's done." Right? He got his money, now he doesn't want to play. That's not the case. Yeah, it's not an effort thing. Okay, that if it was out there and he was loafing and like, okay, then we can question that. That's not the case here, though. It's pretty clearly not the case. It's so it's again, we talk about this a lot, and there's a difference between a bad football player and a good football player having a bad year. I think Jamel Dean is actually, a decent football player who's having a bad year. I think Antoine Winfield Jr. is a really, really good football player who's just having a down year. It happens. Now, is it bad timing? Yeah, for him it is bad timing. After you get that contract, you'd like to see, Winfield played at a level that he has really the past two seasons or so, and you haven't seen that. So I thought he played decent last week, but week before against San Francisco, when San Francisco was driving for the field goal, there was a couple of times he missed a few tackles there, and then obviously today doesn't have the greatest game, especially and is close to sort of got faked out by Thielen on that last touchdown as well. So I'm not worried about him long term. It just might be a down year for Antoine Winfield Jr. and that sucks. It's a bummer, and obviously it makes the defense worse. But it kind of is what it is. You just gotta hope to he can make some plays down the stretch for you and turn it around, because we obviously know the talent's there. It's not a talent issue. And to me again, it's not an effort issue. It's just not working out for him this year.
6 tackles on the day for the team captain Antoine Winfield Jr. Closing thoughts on this game here, Evan, as we kind of wrap things up. I know that there's some more we can dive into when it comes to this defense, but I think we're going to have all week to do that, to be honest with you. I feel like this is going to be a conversation, just like the Todd Bowles conversation, that's going to carry into every single week. I've already contradicted myself. I said a couple of weeks ago that I don't want to talk about Todd Bowles for the rest of the regular season. And last week, I think I made a comment about his job security. We talked about it on the game preview show. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, we have plenty of time moving forward for evaluating the defense today and diving more into Todd Bowles, his job security. But really, overall, your thoughts with this game and what this Buccaneers stretch is going to look like moving forward here. Because again, still a favorable stretch. The Chargers probably the toughest team you're going to play. The rest of the NFC South getting a loss today. So it was a fairly good weekend for Tampa Bay, but you still got to stay ready here moving forward, as always.
Yeah, and look, here's the situation. You got a Las Vegas team who has a couple more days rest than you do. You just went to overtime as well. So Vegas played on Friday. They played a close game against Kansas City. Had an opportunity to win that game. It's a lot similar to the Carolina thing, right? It's kind of weird. Carolina plays Kansas City the week before, almost wins, doesn't win. Yeah, but now Vegas, like I said, they played Friday, so they're resting, and you just went to overtime, so they have the advantage there. But again, Vegas is just simply not a good football team. You got, especially at home, you got to find a way to take care of your business there. So I think coming up on, you got 2 more divisional games left. They're obviously important. You mentioned the Chargers game. You're heading out to LA there, so Chargers are a pretty tough team, and then you got Dallas. So there's a big opportunity here. The one thing I do want to say, and because everybody said oh, they have to go 7-0. I don't necessarily believe that. A loss, it doesn't end their season. Now, a loss against a particular team, maybe. A loss against the Chargers, okay. Right. And I think the reason you basically said in the preview game of this week was that if they lose this game, their season's over, is because you still have that Chargers game, right? If you lose this game and you lose against the Chargers, well, then how are you going to make the playoffs, right? You can probably afford 1 loss. It'd be tough to avoid 2, though, right? It'd be tough to work with 2 losses. So, we'll have to wait and see, what happens. Obviously, the status of a few Bucs players. Mike Edwards, because Jordan Whitehead's not coming back anytime soon. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So, yeah, I do think that there's a good opportunity here, but as you saw a couple hours ago, it sort of doesn't really matter, right? Anybody can beat anybody, and Kansas City playing teams close. And a lot of people in the comment section was like, "Oh, Kansas City, that's not the bar anymore, right?" Because Kansas City plays everybody close.
They're 11-1.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, they're playing a lot of close games, but they're, like you said, they're still 11-1.
They're finding ways. I know it's annoying. I know we are all sick and effing tired of watching the Chiefs win, and I know that it's not as exciting as it has been in years past. But they are the back-to-back Super Bowl champions. They are 11-1. They are literally pulling wins out of their ass. That's how good of a team they are. I know it's not exciting. I know they don't have as many highlight reel plays, but they are finding ways to win, and that is all those guys in that organization care about.
Yeah, it's all that matters. They do not care about anything else. And the Bucs, today, right now, we can dissect the win all we want, right? And say, well, this and that. They don't care. It's so hard to win in the NFL that it's when you take it whenever you can get it. So. Yeah, I mean, look, and then, but Vegas and I understand that's a divisional game, stuff like that. I get it. But Vegas played them close. Vegas played them close. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, this next week. It's a week to week thing though, right? I don't want, the Bucs to be looking ahead too much, because I don't think they have any business looking ahead too much. They're not in that position basically. So we'll see. We'll have to keep an eye on obviously some Falcons games. They play the Vikings next week, so that's a game the Falcons could lose. That's a game that the Vikings are another team that just keeps finding ways to win. They won 1-point game against Arizona today, so that's another one where Atlanta could drop to 6-7, and you could be looking this time next week. The Buccaneers could be in first place in the NFC South. I mean, it's a very real possibility. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, you got to show up and you got to play better than you did today. I mean, you got to, especially your quarterback. Baker Mayfield has to be better than he was today for this next 5 stretch of games, or else the Bucs won't make the playoffs, and if they do, it won't matter because they're gonna get trounced if you play like that against a good team.
This stat courtesy of Greg Allman on X. With the Bucs overtime win today and the Falcons lost to the Chargers and the other teams losing today, Tampa Bay now has a 54% chance to make the postseason per the New York Times playoff simulator. The Falcons are at 59%. He does say the Bucs don't necessarily need to win out. If they go 4-1 the rest of the way with 5 games remaining, the New York Times has them with a 92 to 95% chance of making the playoffs at 10-7. Now, that's only one source. That's only one playoff simulator. So you're going to see different percentages throughout the week. But the fact of the matter is the Buccaneers are boosting their chances every single week that they are able to win a football game. And this week is no different.
And that's also that stuff, I was saying something, early in the game, they showed that the probability, right? With a win, it's this, with a loss, it's this. And I was like, okay, you could say, well, okay, if they lost to Carolina, you're kind of assuming they're gonna lose to Los Angeles. Okay, well, if they beat Carolina, if they lost to Carolina, but then BLA, does it even itself out? So anything can happen, right? Anything can happen at any point, any given Sunday. So we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, I want to take it week by week with this thing, because at the end of the day, it's if they look ahead, they're gonna get beat, and the next thing you know, they're gonna be out of luck. So. Washington won today, so I believe they're at 8 wins now, 2 ahead of the Bucs, which is important because the Bucs have the tiebreaker over Washington. So if it came down to that, the Bucs would get in and Washington would be out. So we'll have to wait and see how it all transpires. But yeah, there's still a lot of work to do.
I don't know if I have a cha-ching sound effect.
There you go.
No. I got too many sound effects. But we are going to wrap things up. We cannot talk about this win, and I can't believe we haven't mentioned him up until this point, to be honest with you. Shame on us. Man, here comes the money, my friend. We cannot talk about this game without talking about Chase McLaughlin. Money Mac does it again.
Stones.
Listen,
just
I know that he was 4 for 5 today. He misses a brutal one from 50+ yards, but he nails.
The snap was in the hold. It was off.
Yeah, I mean, he hits a 51-yarder, his longest of the day. He is 4 for 5, including the game winner that puts Tampa Bay over the top. Listen, Chase McLaughlin, brutal miss. But when you have a miss in those conditions, the fact that I'm not upset at the miss. That's the point that I'm getting at here.
Yeah.
Chase McLaughlin with another class performance. And, making his way up the ranks is one of the better active kickers in the NFL because I think everybody's GOAT, Justin Tucker, might officially be washed after today.
Brother. That guy's cooked. He's cooked more than the turkey you had on Thursday. Look. Not you say, oh, he made a 51-yarder. Yeah, made a 51-yarder in that scenario. If he missed, the game is over. Like you said, and you thought that if they lost the game, the Bucs season was over. So the season was on the leg of Chase McLaughlin right there, and he's just money. It's becoming to the point where he's only been with the team 2 years, but if he keeps this up, there's going to be a few things, right? One, you're going to be talking about him as like one of the best kickers in Bucs history. Then you're going to be talking about one of like Jason Licht's best signings, like best free agent signings. So yeah, he's been nothing short of everything the Bucs could have asked for and then some. Because I don't even know if Jason Licht expected him to be this good. I thought the 51-yarder I thought was going in. The 55-yarder that he missed, I thought that was going in. Even when he lined up for the 51-yarder with 3 seconds left at the end of regulation, any other time, even if it was Ryan Suckup, I'd be like, oh, it's a longer one. It was Suckup. We knew the leg and stuff, but with this, I was like, it's going to overtime. I was like, because he's not gonna miss it, and it's right down the middle. So, he was incredible. The punter, on the other hand, not too good. It's sort of on that thing where they tried to get in a landing zone, it didn't go in the landing zone. I'm gonna say it's 50-50 on Trenton Gill for not doing it, and also on whoever told him to try it. Clearly he was told to do that. He was told to try and get it in a certain area. I don't know why. Just let him. Why'd you give him basically a free 10 yards? Just let him go. And the Bucs, hopefully, it's not going to be this season, I don't think, but I have a good feeling they're going to have a different punter next year.
Yeah, I don't even know why Trenton Gill is the guy. Letting Jake Camarda walk, that's an entirely other conversation that we can have. But this guy seemingly can't do anything right. Had a couple of lowlights so far this year, and the special teams lowlights will probably continue. And like you said, I don't think Gill will be back, but special teams, Chase McLaughlin, baby.
Special teams, special plays, special players.
Money Mac. I don't know if you heard
nice.
it or not. I had to go manually find that sound effect, so you're welcome. But Evan, I think that's going to do it for this week's post-game episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I want to thank each and every person who decided to hang out with us. We had, at one point, well over 200 people in here helping us break this thing down, so we truly do appreciate you guys. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Before we officially close things out, we got a good question here from our West Coast Cannon Fire crew. Coach Wanish, game balls. If you had to pick 3 of them, who you got?
All right. We're gonna give one to Bucky Irving, obviously. So Bucky Irving will get a game ball. Best game of his career easily. So he'll get one. And then we're also gonna give one to Anthony Nelson for making that play. Because it was a game saver basically. So we're gonna give one to Anthony Nelson, and then we're gonna give one to Chase McLaughlin as well. You said 4 for 5, including a 51-yarder to tie the game and kicking the game winner. So I actually like that. I like doing that. We should start doing the 3 game balls each week. That'll be fun. We'll start it late this season, but then that might be something next season. We can incorporate more. So, those are the 3 I think I should say, and you'll be hearing about them again. Best and worst, obviously coming at you guys on Monday. So we'll be talking about those guys yet again because their performances deserve to be talked about a lot.
New segment courtesy of Richard T from the West Coast. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for hanging out with us. Jason Thomas in the live chat giving us a shout out, and the Bubba Army. Appreciate you hanging out, my friend. Buck Wild, the moderator, holding it down. Devout Panthers fan Hollywood Gaming stopping by to let us know how lucky we are the Buccaneers sneaked out with that win. We appreciate you checking us out, brother. Make sure you subscribe and leave a thumbs up. MK, #FireBowls. Mikey Kelly puts aside his disdain for the head coach to come hang out with us. We do appreciate you. And Mark McCavanagh, this was really cool here. Wanted to close with this. Bucs fan from Ireland here. That drive with 30 seconds left to go to get a field goal shows what we can really get a drive going when we need it. The offensive line is seriously the most underrated offensive line in the league. That is a great point. I know we talked about Graham. Yeah, we talked about Graham Barton kind of having his miscues today, but this offensive line, they are maybe the biggest unsung hero of this Buccaneers football team so far this season, because a lot of the guys that you needed to develop in the interior have done just that. Cody Mauch has played really well. Again, Graham Barton had his day today, but he's had an overwhelmingly positive rookie season, I would say. And Tristan Wirfs back in the lineup this week looked good out there as well. But thank you guys once again. Follow Evan, my co-host here, on social media. Instagram at Bucs_daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. And check out his written work at BucsNation.com. What have you got cooking for this week?
Yeah, well, obviously we're going to have the reactions, which, I mean, would have been one way or another, basically, right? It would have been very interesting to see Twitter basically melt down and the Buccaneers lost that game. But now we're going to be able to talk a lot about a lot of thoughts that people have, maybe good and bad, is like we talked about in this episode. There's been a lot of good and bad with this game. So stay tuned to BucsNation.com for that. As far as YouTube goes, like I mentioned earlier, gonna have best and worst coming out on Monday. Gonna be a lot of familiar faces. You know, we're gonna be talking about a lot of different guys. So check that out. Later in the week, heading to the Vegas game. Basically, we will be obviously talking about betting the Bucs. Betting the Bucs had a 2-2 week this past week. So got the Thielen, got the Evans, but was actually the Mayfield, because it ended up going to overtime. The Mayfield one was close, but we did come up short there, and then obviously way short on the Rachaad White one. So check out betting the Bucs. We've been having a lot of success actually recently. So check that out later in the week, and then also players to watch for the upcoming game later in the week. So really, I mean, almost every day of the week, you can come to the Campfire Podcast YouTube channel and find some sort of content, whether it be short-term or long video. We appreciate you listening on audio if you are, but if you want a little bit more content, head over to the Campfire Podcast YouTube channel.
Plenty of great content, as always, youtube.com/cannonfirepodcast. Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram and Twitter at Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. But that's the show. Once again, thank you to everybody for hanging out with us. Shout out to the Cannon Fire crew and all of our channel members. We really appreciate your guys' support, and we will talk to you soon. More Bucs content coming your way this week. Don't forget, youtube.com/cannonfirepodcast. Be there. A lot of great stuff. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish. We will talk to you in the next one. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening, and go Bucs.